Elvira and James, I am weary. I'm weary of this COVID going on for so long. And I'm really weary of not being able to connect in person with our people, not just on Sabbath morning, but during the time. I'm weary of this distancing that we are practicing, and it's just going on for too long. How do you feel, Elvira?
No, I absolutely agree, and I've experienced the same feelings at times. And what it has done to me is I've reached out to family because I've felt the need to get close to someone that I care about, but obviously extends to the church family as well, and really missing seeing people. And what I've done to try and counteract that is to find promises in God's word. For example, there are quite a few in Isaiah where he talks about in quietness and trust is your strength. So trusting in God, putting the future in his hands has been very encouraging to me. Going for walks, enjoying nature, I found that very healing as well.
Yeah, I think that there are things we can do, and it's a great examples. For me, I mean, one of the things that's been wearisome for me during all this is, a month ago I had a child, my son was born, and it's wearying because of the dangers that we deal with. Who gets to have contact? Grandparents and families are limited, and that's a toilsome thing because my wife and I love our families, but we also love our child, and how to balance that. It's a really toilsome thing. And then in me working with young people, part of the fun of working with young people is spending time. We go get something to eat, we have interaction, and that's wearisome. So yeah, and there's many, many more things that I can think of, but those are the two things that come to mind as we talk about it.
The thing that I'm probably most weary about is the messages flying all over the place from our culture around us, and actually also creeps into the church. The pain people feel from being isolated, the pain of a lack of income, a lack of job security. Those pains are really wearing. But there's also the pain of some comments are made that are hurtful. And I know that people may express their strong opinions without intending to hurt, but the message comes across almost like it's judgmental and makes people feel hurt. We have a dichotomy, really a polarization, and people feel very strongly. We can really understand that. Is there a sense of pain, Elvira, that you're also picking up?
Yes, definitely. And so I kind of have to watch social media, how often I'm on Facebook, because it can be pretty discouraging if one focuses on a lot of negative things. I also have to look at the big picture and think, who is it who wants to divide God's people, who wants to split the church, who wants to bring unhappiness? And so in my heart, I have to say, God, I give it to you. Everything I give to you, my feelings, my emotions, when people don't agree with the way I think is right and the way we should do things, I have to give it to God and say, God, you know the best. You know the end from the beginning. And I've often had to pray, Lord, put a right spirit in my heart. Give me a clean heart.
Yeah, so much pain in the things you mentioned, Ivan, with people causing harm even when they're not intending to, just sharing an opinion. I think there's such a craziness in the world today, and how do we navigate it all? And I think the most important thing for me in all this is to try not to focus on the pain, not to ignore it. It's real, it's there, people are experiencing it, not to delegitimize it, but to think to myself, how can I be part of God's plan as a healer to pain, right? To come and take the pain away. And part of our church's focus is to lift Jesus up and love people in. And I think part of that that's very important is when I'm dealing with people who I strongly disagree with, right? Or when somebody says something that I feel like is an attack on me or the decisions I've made, how can I step back and allow Jesus to control my heart, right? And be forgiving. Even if somebody's being hurtful intentionally, right? It's one thing, and that happens. And so I guess I challenge myself to think about that, and I try to surrender that to God daily. But I also challenge our church members, if you're part of this church family, if you're watching this sometime, ask God to do that for you, because we don't have it figured out. And there's a lot of unknowns, but I would hope that we can all at least ask ourselves and ask God to make us willing and change our hearts so that we can be a safe place for somebody to be completely off base with, somebody to be completely wrong around, and we can still be safe there. And I think when we focus on that aspect, I hope that with Jesus living in my heart, I'm not increasing the pain, but lessening the pain. And I think that we'll only know that when we get to heaven and look back, and it's only by the power of God that any of that is going to happen in us. But I think that that's what our church is about, and I'm really thankful for that. And I think a lot of people are doing that in spite of the real things that are happening now.
I really like the thought that you're giving out, that we need to look to God to help us with that. There's a passage in Romans 15, and it's just a great chapter, but there's one passage there that says that God, who gives encouragement and patience, and because he gives that, we can ask him for that in this context. But it then goes on to say that because God gives encouragement and patience, let us live in harmony with one another. So I can't look within myself and find that there, but I can look to God and ask him for that, acknowledging that my tendency is to take sides. Which part of the polar am I going to choose to be part of? But I rather want to choose to let God speak patience and encouragement through me. And I really want to thank you guys and everyone else in our church who makes it possible to have the services, the programs that are available for people to connect. And we know it's not ideal, it's not perfect, but at least I hope people don't grow weary of using the Zoom when that is needed for Sabbath school. And come to the outdoor service. Come into in-person worship when you are safe, and it is the proper thing for you to do with the restrictions that we have on. But want to just thank God for holding his hand over the Fletcher Church. And thank you for this conversation. It's encouraged me right now.